Hi, I'm Leadership Development Coach Kathy Archer. Last week, I was in Edmonton speaking at a provincial conference about developing your grit in leadership. And I thought I'd take the opportunity today and over the next few weeks to talk a little bit more about not only grit, but what it takes to be a successful leader. So there was a study done, or many studies done, by Angela Duckworth and her colleagues at the Pennsylvania State University. And you can watch Angela's TED Talk about grit. And it really jumped out at me, as it did a number of other people, because it's really become this phenomena looking at what is grit and why is it important in leadership. So what they discovered was there are two personality traits that are indicators of success. The first one is grit, and the second one is self-control. And I'll talk about self-control next week, but I wanted to talk about grit today. So what is grit? Well, think of the pioneers, the settlers, think of an Olympic athlete, think of somebody who digs deep for the really long haul for something they really believe in. You know, sometimes it's a politician who sort of brings a country back out of, some of those dark places. It might be an organizational leader who has come in and, for the long term really is about persevering, being determined to make a difference. And that's kind of the three things that are key about grit. Grit is, really being passionate, working hard for something that you believe in for the long term. So it's not short-term glory. It is long-term, through the tough stuff, through the slogging through as an Olympic athlete does, the training and the grueling hours that they're putting in. If you think of somebody who, has finished their master's, they had to work hard for years and years. They had to miss out on lots. They had to study. They had to be determined. That's grit. I think sometimes as leaders, we tend to forget that it takes a long time to sometimes make change happen. Certainly there are things that change overnight, but when you're talking about changing the culture of an organization, or, you've moved offices, but you have to work through that process of change and the implications that it has, it requires a certain determination in the leader. It requires a doggedness. It requires a steadfast, that iron will to keep at it again and again and again, despite failures, despite setbacks, despite challenges. When I was at the conference last week, there was lots of talk about, the oil prices have dropped and what's going to happen and cutbacks and implications for that. And here's the thing. If you've been in this field long enough, you know that the political whims come and go and the pendulum swings back and forth and we go from one acronym to another. And if you're going to be a successful leader, a strong leader, a leader that's really impactful in your organization, it's not that you don't need to pay attention to that, but you can't let all of that get you down. You have to stick with it, be determined, be passionate, work hard, stay with it for the long term, knowing full well that if you do, you'll reap the benefits. You will be rewarded for your effort and work. You will find that the culture of your organization will change. You will find that you'll be successful in accreditation. You will win contracts. You will get the good staff and you will keep them. When you persevere for the long haul, that's grit. When you dig deep and you're determined and you're persistent and you persevere, that's grit. When you will not give up, despite failures, despite setbacks, despite challenges, that's grit. And the grittier you are as a leader, the more successful you'll be, the more achievements that your organization will be able to achieve in the long term. So if you're curious about grit, I'm going to put a link in below with Angela Duckworth's TED Talk, as well as her self-assessment to see how gritty you are. And maybe look at what it is that you need to do to not only grow your own grit, but grow the grit in the people that you work with. Because, you can just imagine that having a grittier team and individuals on your team who are more gritty, that you will all be more successful in what you're endeavoring to do.